Aliens collapsed. I asked whether the blast had cancelled my lunch reservation today. I was still brushing soot off my academy blazer when the sirens quieted and the translucent doors swung open. The plasma lab's containment field had hiccuped, flared, and erupted into a blue blossom of sparks. And 36 species discovered the hard way that humans stash napkins everywhere. I wiped my sleeves, blew a tiny smoke ring from my collar, and waved at Professor Eric, teetering on 4 jointed legs and juggling 3 clipboards. "Cadet Mara," he chittered. "You are charred." "Trendsetter," I replied. "Seasonal burnt charcoal." The class stared, mandibles, beaks, and frills frozen, oddly silent. We had been testing resonance tuning for shared power grids, something the Academy claimed would prevent chain reactions on battlefields. I volunteered to step into the student cage and coax the temperamental generator because, last I counted, I was the only one fluent in sarcasm while flipping emergency switches. Alien students think sarcasm is a human magic dialect. Let them. Helps with team projects. When the field spiked, I followed my grandmother's backyard barbecue wisdom. I starved the flame, gave it somewhere safe to go, popped the vent, bled the charge into the ceiling collectors, and held the ground switch under my boot so the console didn't faint. Only after the explosion did anyone exhale. That's when Glint, the crystal-bodied exchange cadet, finally spoke. "Is your species immune to fire?" he asked, facets humming anxiously. "Only the jackets," I said, flicking a phantom ember. "Emotionally fireproof fabric." Laughter, hesitant and uneven, rippled around the benches. From the back row, a towering amphibian cadet raised a careful hand. "But you stood between plasma and us," she asked. "Why?" I glanced at the scorched cage, frayed comfort rope and still sizzling coils. "Because I was closest," I said, "and because I suspected the generator and I were having a private argument, not a public class meltdown." Professor Eric's antenna relaxed. Remarkable judgment. Also, detention for unsanctioned humor during an incident report. He never smiles in this form, but his pupils sparkle when proud, and they practically shone like skylights. The next hour was spent resetting safeties and cataloging what the blast had scattered like confetti. Photonic spanners were embedded in the foam ceiling like silver petals. The cafeteria's tomato soup shipment, stored next door for historical reasons, had boiled and perfumed the hallway with heroic comfort. By our 20th room check, the lab looked less like a disaster and more like a dramatic science fair. News of the blast spread faster than light through student gossip. Whispers trailed me across the quad, past arc torches and the holograph, to the amphitheater where first years learned safe curiosity. An impromptu crowd gathered, eager to see the rare human who treated exploding plasma like spilled coffee. Let them. It's easier to explain while walking and doing wrist stretches. "You come from a warrior culture?" a raptor-like cadet asked, jogging to keep pace. "My people live above a bakery," I said. "Our war is with overcooked crusts." "But histories say your species fought everyone," another said. "Did you win?" "We learned to stop dueling every problem," I said, watching the shock ripple over faces. The Academy adores tales of conquest but cares less when I point out repair manuals save more lives than victory songs. The amphibian caught up. "You moved first," she said. "Do humans always move first?" "Only when someone might get hurt," I said. "Also, sometimes for free pie." The head archivist then arrived, draped in fluttering pages, flanked by record drones. "Cadet Mara," he trilled. "Your display generated 10,000 queries. The council requests a debrief, and possibly your jacket recipe." I followed him to the council rotunda, past murals of heroes posing with beacons and banners. Whispers trailed us. They expected either punishment or celebration. Here, both looked the same under speeches and ornate hats. Seated in concentric rings, the council projected the lab footage. The blast blossomed, shields quivered. Kicked the ground switch. Vents flared, ash fell like confetti over me. Ministers murmured. One leaned forward. "Why did you not retreat?" I tapped the table. Retreat is fine sometimes, but the switch was under my boot. Stepping back might have let the loop feed itself. Also, negotiating committee seating with a live circuit isn't trivial. Another murmured in surprise. You relied on judgment over protocol. Protocols are excellent, I said. They prevent repeating disasters, but they can't account for every strange Tuesday. That's where people matter. After nods and debate over whether Tuesdays are universal, they released me, with a request to demonstrate human strategy at tomorrow's safety lecture. On my way out, a cluster of younger students huddled near a fountain. They looked like kids who needed reassurance that being careful and brave could coexist. I joined them. We practiced breathing exercises, quick body scans for panic, and the trick of naming 5 colors in the room to pull focus from roaring what-ifs. I taught them the oldest human ritual for shared courage. We traded ridiculous stories about our worst lab disasters until laughter shrank fear to pocket size, fitting neatly next to optimism. That night, I patched my blazer with a needle and thread from a kit my mom had sent, just in case aliens doubted spare buttons existed. I added a small loop on the inner hem for emergencies. Planning, she used to say, is a love letter to tomorrow. The next morning, the amphitheater overflowed. Rumor promised I'd juggle plasma while quoting poetry. I frowned at the story and promised instead that everyone would leave knowing how to help the next person in line. We set up stations, field triage, circuit calming, evacuation choreography, and a comedy corner, because the brain relaxes when it knows laughter is allowed. When alarms blared, scheduled this time, the hall moved like a rehearsed wave. Cadets sealed doors, tuned fields, guided visitors. The planned flare rose bright and beautiful, then obeyed the catchers like a disciplined comet. The crowd cheered, not for me but for themselves. Afterward, Glint approached with a tiny patch cut from heat shield cloth, shaped like a sunflower. For your jacket, he said, to remind you that you gave the blast somewhere harmless to go. I smiled and sewed it on as they watched, the needle flashing like a familiar star. One more thing, the head archivist said, appearing at perfect dramatic timing. Tell us the real secret. Is bravery born or practiced? I considered the patch, the class, and how yesterday's terror had learned new steps. Practiced, I said, preferably with friends, a checklist, and soup in the next room. The rumor mill had grown bolder since the explosion. By the time the second sun rose over the glass towers, stories claimed I wrestled plasma with bare hands, whispered secret words to the generator until it obeyed, and even that humans treat fire as a pet. I was still chewing toast in the cafeteria when 2 insectoid cadets approached, antennae twitching, holding a stack of permission slips. Cadet Mara, would you lead a volunteer group into the plasma labs again? I set down my toast carefully. Only if we bring snacks and fire extinguishers. Preferably one for each limb you have. They didn't laugh, but they nodded and scribbled notes, convinced humor was another form of technical expertise. Soon I found myself part of an entire student initiative. Framed as peer-to-peer learning, it was really the academy testing how far human improvisation could stretch before shattering. We had 30 cadets from 9 species crammed into the lab. Wide-eyed, waiting for the legendary human technique involving sarcasm, quick hands, and a patched jacket. The first trial was simple. Simulate an overload, observe the chain, and shut it down before destabilization. Alien cadets swarmed the console, reciting protocols in 5 languages, bumping limbs as if volume could summon safety. I clapped sharply. You don't all have to do everything. Pick roles. Trust each other. Silence spreads faster than alarms. Cooperation was difficult. Many of these species grew up where success meant striking first or yielding last. Letting someone else cover a switch felt like abandoning honor. I drew a diagram on the soot-stained wall. A circle of arrows. Back home we play a game called Pass the Bucket. Fire breaks out. You don't carry the water alone. Pass it fast. Everyone relies on the next person. Nobody remembers who poured the last drop, only that the fire's out. They blinked, unsure if I meant literal water or metaphor. Shrugged. Mostly metaphor unless someone brought buckets. The simulation began. Sparks licked the cage. Alarms wailed. The students froze, waiting for each other to act. I whistled sharply, cutting through the chaos. Rolls! Bark! Slowly they moved. Feathered cadet darted to vent valves. Crystalline one braced the stabilizer. Amphibian heaved the lever. I danced among them, calling shifts, redirecting limbs, ensuring no control was grabbed twice. Together, the flare flattened. The system sighed in stability. For a breathless moment, only the hum of machinery remained. Then they erupted into cheers, alien voices blending into a storm of triumph. It wasn't me this time. They had done it. Later, in the garden of levitating stones, a quiet group lingered. The amphibians spoke first. We work together because you told us to. We never do that. I plucked a pebble, rolling it in my palms. Maybe that's the trick. It's not about bravery or fancy jackets. It's knowing when to let someone else hold the bucket. They considered this, eyes glittering violet and gold. Then the archivist appeared, this time with council observers. The council requests another demonstration, he said, pages rustling like storm leaves. A grand one before the full academy. I groaned inwardly. Public shows always ended with legends stitched out of misunderstandings. But refusal wasn't an option. The council didn't ask, they declared. Preparations for the demonstrations spread through the academy like wildfire. Posters, holographic previews, hushed wagers. Some whispered I would juggle live plasmaspheres. Others spoke of a mythical Earth ritual called fireworks. I stuck to drills, training my small group until their instincts bent toward coordination. The day arrived. The amphitheater, a vast dome of silver light, brimmed with cadets and instructors. My group stood beside me, nervous but steadier than before. Professor Eric presided, antenna twitching with official pomp. Today we witness the integration of species knowledge, he announced, as demonstrated by Cadet Mara and her peers. The chamber shifted. Panels slid aside, revealing a massive simulator chamber. No longer a simple lab, the academy had transformed it into a battlefield of machines, towers, and unstable power grids. My stomach sank. They weren't just testing safety, they wanted to see how humans commanded under pressure. The simulation roared to life. Enemy constructs, glowing with plasma cores, surged across the field, threatening to overload every generator. My group panicked. Form a chain, shouted. Pairs on each node. You're not fighting them, you're calming them. We scrambled, ducking between sizzling arcs, throwing switches, redirecting currents. Cadets hesitated when sparks turned violent, but I pressed forward, soot streaking my jacket again, leading with ridiculous confidence I wasn't sure I had. A crystalline cadet faltered until I yelled. Pretend it's a singing contest and the note is too high. Bend it down. Somehow the metaphor worked. He stabilized his node, humming low, resonance syncing with the field. The machines calmed one by one, until the battlefield shimmered with quiet energy. When the dust settled, the amphitheater thundered with applause. Aliens of all shapes leaned forward, eyes wide, some in awe, some in suspicion. I knew this wasn't the end. The council didn't stage tests this dramatic without planning something bigger. For now, though, the cadets beside me were grinning, soot-streaked, and my jacket earned another patch, a crooked lightning bolt stitched by shaky but proud hands. The cheers faded as the council chamber dimmed into tense silence. Holographic walls dissolved, replaced by stern faces of elder instructors from every division. Their robes shimmered like distant constellations, eyes fixed on me as if the soot on my jacket held answers older than the academy itself. Cadet Mara, the eldest intoned, voice resonating like cavern bells. The academy has learned much from your improvisations, but simulations are still rehearsals. The galaxy is less forgiving. Today you face the grand convergence trial. My peers gasped. Few ever spoke of it aloud. The trial was reserved for those suspected of holding potential to redefine academy doctrine. It wasn't just about fixing broken machines, it was about proving an entire philosophy. We were whisked into the largest dome the Academy owned, a sphere with shifting landscapes, artificial atmospheres, and fleets of constructs awaiting orders. This time, the scenario wasn't sabotage or miscalibration. It was a full war simulation. Towers bristled with alien defenses. Across from us, fleets of drones programmed to overwhelm by sheer force loomed. My group turned to me, fear plain in their many-colored eyes. "We don't know how to fight like humans," one whispered. "That's the good news," I said. "Neither do I, but I know how we win." The scenario began. Drones surged like storm clouds, firing plasma arcs. Towers crumbled. Ground trembled. Alien cadets faltered under the barrage. Panic threatened the chain we had built. I stepped forward, sparks crackling around me. "Listen," I shouted above the roar. "Don't fight as expected. Don't match force with force. Redirect, mislead, confuse. Humans win by turning battles sideways." They hesitated, but I grabbed 2 cadets, shoving them toward a crumbling tower. "Make it look abandoned, then power it up at the right moment. Surprise!" I sprinted to the next group, beams of plasma raining too close. "Don't block them. Angle the shield so it hits their own machines." The amphibian cadet slammed a lever. Sparks ricocheted into the drone formation, toppling half of them. A crystal cadet hummed a resonance that destabilized enemy targeting, scattering shots. Everywhere the others caught on, not to destroy head-on but to redirect. I leapt trenches, climbed scaffolds, shouting half-serious metaphors to anchor courage. Dodgeball, not a duel. Trick them into hitting each other. Slowly, impossibly, the tide turned. Drones fell, not to superior firepower, but to clever misdirection. Alien cadets who once distrusted everyone moved in unison, relying on the next to play their part. Then the final wave. A massive fortress-shaped construct with wings, plasma heart pulsing as if mocking us. My cadets looked at me again. I wiped soot from my sleeve. "We do what humans do when the enemy's too big. We make them trip over their own shoelaces." They blinked at the nonsense but followed. False retreats lured the fortress to overextend. Every live circuit rerouted into one feedback loop. The machine charged a massive blast and collapsed under its own weight, shattering harmlessly. Silence followed. Then thunderous applause, louder than anything I'd ever heard. The council rose. "What we witnessed today is not mere improvisation. It is proof that humanity brings a perspective our academy lacks. To adapt, twist the rules, laugh in the smoke of disaster, and move forward. Cadet Mara, you and your peers have passed." Relief and pride washed over the group. They cheered, hugging awkwardly across claws, wings, and crystalline shoulders. I tugged at my jacket, the lightning patch catching the glow. The archivist drifted closer, voice soft. "Your species has a way of making survival into art." Chuckled. "We just call it Tuesday." From that day the academy changed. Training halls included trust drills and humor breaks, Earth-style rituals. Murals appeared showing cadets of every kind passing imaginary buckets, laughing under painted sparks. And in the archives, one jacket hung, patched and scorched, not for surviving plasma, but as proof that a single human could show cooperation stronger than any weapon. I didn't need more applause. Watching my classmates walk taller, braver, ready for anything, that was enough. Still, I made a note. Keep soup stocked near every lab. Planning, after all, is a love letter to tomorrow.